It's story time, and today we have our first guest on Equal Matters to tell us his story. It's my man, Eric Walters. He is the founder of A Taste of AZ. That's him right there. We've been friends for almost a decade now, sharing coffees and sharing burgers and sharing meals and plenty of beers along the way. So,
Yep.
Eric, I just want to start, I just want to jump right in. Before we start talking about A Taste of AZ and what you do with your media company, what is the most difficult decision you've ever made? Oh, and thanks for being here, by the way.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited, Rob. I'm a fan of you as a person, as a friend, and a colleague. And I mean, I'm just always impressed by what you bring to the table, just in your professionalism.
Oh,
But
thanks.
you're an awesome dude with good taste of music too. So that that
We
helps
have shared a lot of music also. You turned me
for
on
sure.
to the Black Pumas, and I listened to the song Colors a lot because of you.
That's a great song, man. That is a great song. Yeah, well, so for your question, the hardest decision I ever made, it's kind of funny because I feel like the things that I've chose to do in my life that are typically like the very hard decisions, right? Like, moving 2000 a mile, 2000 miles away from home to a place I've never been, right? Moving from Ohio to Arizona, that was an easy decision. Uh, Quitting my job in 2018 to kind of pursue my own path, easy decision. Even quitting drinking, like I quit drinking about 2.5 years ago, and that was an easy decision. I mean, so these things that are typically hard decisions for people that kind of came easy to me, and some I'm like, was that too easy? Like, should I have thought about that a little bit more? Uh, but but for me, I think the hardest, I don't know if this was necessarily the decision, or maybe I didn't realize it at the time, but it was having a business partner, right? Because where I come from, blue collar world, right? Youngstown, Ohio, like it's like the epitome of blue collar, right? It's an old steel city. It's
Mm.
where General Motors had assembly lines for decades. So very blue collar, very your worth as a person is your work, right? Who you
Ah,
are
yeah.
is your work, right? That's your value, the number of hours that you work, your pay, your income, uh, you're part of the machine, right? Like you're
Of
just a
course.
literally like a cog in that machine. So for me, even though I never really I felt like an outsider my whole life because I never really grasped that concept, or never really felt that that was me. um, I still have these deep seated, beliefs, or not even beliefs, just these deep seated feelings and um, things that are programmed into me that, several years ago, I had talked to a therapist, and she had told me, she's like, the hardest relationship in your life you're ever going to have is your business partner. And I was like, wow,
Wow. Not even
yeah,
yourself, right? Usually a therapist
yeah,
with the hardest relationship, the one with you, but yeah, business partner. Because
yeah.
why? Because you're a true partnership and you have to learn how to work together through ups and downs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a great business partner. I'm very grateful for Luke. And he's got a really good way of, for the younger guy, like he's 30 and I'm 47,
Yeah.
but he's mature beyond his years, and he's able to detach from the work. And he tells me a lot over the years. He's like, look, like your value is not your work. I carry stuff heavy with me
Hmm.
sometimes, and he's like, dude, who cares? Like, who cares? Like, this doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter in the scheme of things. And so over the past probably 2 years, I've really worked to kind of reverse that. Um so yeah, I think the hardest decision was to have a business partner, and to
Wow.
continue, and decisions along that way to continue that business partnership, right? Where things would maybe get tense, or there's a project that you
Hmm.
know, he wanted to keep doing, but I didn't want to for one reason or another. Um, Deciding to work through that, and being humble in myself to be like, the kid's right. Like, he knows what he's talking
Yeah.
about. I need to just suck it up, and I need to humble myself to, uh, you know, to confrontation was never in my world growing up. Confrontation typically escalated to something that became serious, right? So I avoid confrontation, where uh, you know My wife, she's very much like, she'll tell her parents, she's like, "You're being annoying, Dad. Like, what are you doing?" I was like, "Yeah." I'm like,
That's a
"Whoa, whoa,
superpower right there to be able to
yeah,
tell your parents the truth.
yeah, for sure." And when I talk with my parents, it's very like, "Oh, hey," very surface level, very, we don't talk about our emotions and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, as the years have progressed, I've gotten closer with them in that aspect. But yeah, so I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah,
No,
the
it's great.
decision to take on and maintain a business partnership was
Yeah, I
the
love it
hardest
too
decision.
because it's a curveball. Because we typically think, Eric, the answer would be, yeah, I moved from Ohio to Arizona sight unseen. I just had this calling to go to the desert. And then I
Yeah,
quit my job to create my own company
yeah,
and to do that. But now you're like, no, actually doing it with someone because it does change the game. But there's so
yeah,
much in your answer that I love, right? I've heard it programming, I've heard it conditioning, because one of the things that I've really tried to change about myself is be anti grind because I grew up with
mhm,
that grind and hustle mentality where you put the hours in. For
yeah,
example, my first job was in a supermarket. So I remember Sunday was time and a half day. And one Sunday, it was a Saturday night. I worked until I think I was filling in for the crew chief or something. So I worked 2 to 10, but then the overnight guys came in to stock the shelves Sunday, into Sunday, and they asked if I wanted to stay. I'm like, yeah. So I stayed till 5 in the morning, and then I went home and slept for like 3 hours or 4 hours, and then they came back and worked my regular like 10 to 6 shift. So I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I got all this time and a half, and I thought I was so great. But now I think about that, I'm like, I am anti that because
yeah,
I'm a cog in the machine stocking the shelves rather than taking care of me. So I think that's worth pointing out too is how do you decondition yourself from the Youngstown upbringing where the modus operandi is exactly that. So you start
yeah,
your own thing, you bring on Luke, and you guys have been working together. So how
yeah.
is the deprogramming from the cog in the wheel? How's it been in working with Luke at A Taste of AZ? And I just want to point out what Eric does. A Taste of AZ is really awesome. So, first and
Thank you.
foremost, we're going to talk food festivals, which are
Yes,
blowing the doors out of people here in Phoenix. It's so cool the way you guys are doing that. You've
thank you.
got magazine that really features some of the best food and restaurateurs and award-winning chefs in Arizona. You also have a podcast that goes along with that and social media channels. So you have this media company that you've created with Luke. So going
Yeah.
back to that question and learning to deprogram it, how has it impacted your working relationship with Luke and through your creativity?
I mean, it's I know, like, my wife is like, I'm like, my wife is a great leader, like at her work and just as a person, like among our friends and among our family. She's a really great leader. So she's always told me that I was like I was her star pupil, right? Because uh because she saw my potential, number one, but she also knew that I was willing to, like, I want to change, I want to improve, right? Almost sometimes to a fault,
Yeah.
where one time I was talking with her and I was just frustrated, like, I'm doing all these things and success just isn't coming as fast as I want it to, or what I think it should be. And I was just like, I'm trying so hard, I don't understand, like,
Yeah.
why. And she's like, "Stop trying so hard." I'm like, "What? Like, what? Like,
Such
what
a
are you talking?"
simple but brilliant thing to say.
Yeah, for sure, and that stuck with me because it's like, it is that blue collar mentality, just keep working through, just keep fighting, just, "Nah, I'm gonna push it, I'm gonna make it
Yes.
work." Where when I was able to be like, "All right, you know what?" And I took off, I took like about a 6-month hiatus from anything growth related, anything I'm reading this book about, marketing, I'm reading this book about mindset, right? I just took a break and I'm like, I want to get re-inspired again, right? Because what inspired me to kind of take this path was um, creative things, right?
Mm.
Like, there's two videos in particular that were the seed for all of this, and it was the Black Keys. There's a live NPR. They did a. It wasn't the Black Keys. It was actually the Arcs. So Dan Auerbach from Black Keys has that band, the Arcs, and it was called Companion. It was a live
Mm.
NPR version. And I was like, "Whoa, this is cool." And then I saw the Chris Stapleton Tiny Desk concert, and I'm like, "All right, this is it. Like, this is like music, like this, and that
Yeah.
sparked the idea to start a music podcast with a friend that I grew up with. And then the music podcast spawned into a beer podcast, which spawned into food and beverage podcast, to a book, to and it all just kept kind of growing from there, right? So for me, I think it was the awareness and it was the willingness to want to know that that mindset that I had, that's been that had been instilled in me for, I mean, 38 years, right? To
Yeah.
to understand the limitations of that, right? And it's just recently that I've also been, one of the things that, when I quit drinking, I was, I had like the flu or something like that. So I hadn't had a drink in like 2 weeks, which for me, that's the longest time in
At the
like 20
time,
years. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it was
yeah,
a part of your business. It was a part of your podcast and a part of how you
yeah.
created. Hmm.
Yep. So I went 2 weeks and I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling pretty good. I'm gonna try to hit a month. And
Wow.
so I hit a month, and in that time period, in that 2 week time period between, feeling better from being sick and that month that I was trying to hit, I was just really thinking a lot about it. Like, maybe I just want to, call it quits and just, stop drinking. So I wrote a pros and cons list, and uh, all the pros of quitting, it was huge, and the cons, or let's say the pros of continuing drinking, it was like, I might have had two things on there. Um, but as the time progressed, right, as I go a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year and a
Yeah.
half, what I
Yeah.
started realizing was, one, I don't say it's a positive, but one of the things that it would do for me, would it would shut my it would shut my brain off, right? It would, like, Thursday
Oh,
night,
yeah.
Friday night, Thursday night, I'd have a couple beers and I was able to relax, and I'm not thinking about stuff and stressing about stuff. So I was like, all right, well, that was the one positive that it kind of had, that it helped me to shut this brain off, right? But then after kind of, journaling and some self-discovery, I'm like, you know what? That's a gift. Like, that's a gift that my brain never shuts off. So I'm
Yeah.
glad, so it was kind of reframing um certain aspects of how I grew up and certain aspects of the things that were embedded into me, and just taking a different perspective on it, and realizing, like, this is not a bad thing. Like, that hustle mentality, that, you
Yeah.
know, working hard, and taking um a lot of pride in what I do, and taking things personally, is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Until it is a bad thing,
Yeah.
right? And so just
Absolutely.
kind of finding that balance.
Yeah, I'm super interested too, Eric, in being able to just quit drinking that easily, being able to move to Arizona from Ohio that easily, being
Yeah,
able to quit your job that easily. Because right now I'm in this transition period with drinking too, where I just really started to go beyond even thinking about drinking, but really, why am I drinking? Because
yeah,
I'd be sitting down and at a restaurant and I felt almost obligated for the server's benefit to order a drink or two. Like, I want to have a
sure.
martini. And again, I'm not knocking drinking, but
Yeah,
I was wondering, why am I doing this? So the last month or so, I think I've had half a glass of wine. And that's been just really freeing in the sense that I'm letting go of that feeling of obligation because, well, this is what you do when you go to a restaurant. When, my
yeah,
wife will drink a glass of wine, and we went out the other night, she had 2 glasses of wine, and I just wasn't feeling it. So I'm just like, I'm just going to drink water. So
yeah.
it's like it was a slow kind of transition for me. And I'm not saying I'm never going to drink or I'm not going to have a martini once in a while, but I'm just re-examining the relationship as to why I do it. So for you,
Yeah.
and able to make that switch so easily on those three big life decisions, what was that like for you? Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, I would say two of those decisions were easy, because they were always things that moving away from a home was always something I wanted to do, right? So
Got it.
I was just waiting for the right opportunity, and the right opportunity came because my cousin and her husband were stationed out here at Luke Air Force Base, and she was going to have a baby, and my aunt, who I'm really close with, was going to come out and help her,
Nice.
like, kind of be like her nanny. So, you know, I always joke that, like, I kind of hit like some very good industries at the wrong time, right? I got into mortgages in like 2006, right? So uh, but that me not finding success in that actually kept that door open for me to, like, there's nothing holding me back.
Right.
So my dad was like, let's go check out Arizona. Like, we'll go out there. If you like it, then I'll help you kind of figure out a plan to move out there.
Nice.
And maybe about, I don't know, 2 weeks before we were gonna fly out, he calls me, he's like, you know what? He's like, you've got nothing to lose. He's like, why don't you just move out? He's like, just move out there
Wow.
and see what happens. And I'm like,
How cool.
I'm in. Yeah.
Dad gave you the push. That's cool.
Yeah. Always has. He's always has. He'd
Nice.
always tell me that, he's like, there's more to this world than this small town that we're from. And, you know, quick little story about my dad. I don't know if I ever shared. I think I've shared this with you, but so my dad um, he was in a lot of bands growing up. Like him and his cousin Gary were like guitarists, and they loved playing
Oh,
music.
yeah.
Yes. So he graduated high school. He wanted to work for the summer, and then he was going to drive his motorcycle to LA. He was going to be a rock star, right? Like that was his dream. I didn't know this honestly until maybe a year ago. I've never heard this full story, right? So he wanted to make some money, get some money, take his motorcycle to Arizona, or drive his motorcycle to LA, be a rock star. So he starts working at this factory, kind of by where I grew up, and he got hurt. He got electrocuted,
Mm.
and so
Whoa.
bad, lost both of his arms,
No
like
kidding.
almost died. Yeah. So he was like walking across this catwalk at this like second story of this factory. This high power tension line was hanging down, and it actually pulled him. It was raining and he was wet, and it pulled him off of the catwalk. And his instinct was to put his arms up, so his arms took the brunt of that electricity. I mean, I don't know. I want to say 10,000 volts or something, like something insane
Yeah.
amount that, like,
Yeah.
so for him, he grew up in this, blue collar world. And now, 18 years old, lost both of his arms, the right arm completely and the left arm just below the elbow.
Wow.
Um, so now, like, work is not an option for him, right?
Yeah.
Like, so he ends up going to school to become a social worker. So he ends up like that's what his career was, and he retired a couple of years ago,
Nice.
and he was a social worker that he wanted to help people, um, and it so for him, that blue collar world that option was just taken off the table for him, and he shared with me years later. He's like, man, all my friends got to ride like dirt bikes, and they would do all of these things, and I couldn't do any of those things. I couldn't work on cars, like all these things I was interested in. So he was forced into a scenario, a situation where, the world that we were around, there was nothing that really fit him. You know what
Mm.
I mean? So
Yeah.
but for him, he always, obviously he wanted to leave town when he was 18. So he always had that seed planted in him, and his mom, my grandmother, she was a huge influence for me too. Like she was a restaurant owner, she was an
Mm.
artist, she was, a woman realtor in like the 70s and 80s when,
Wow.
yeah, like, so she was an innovator. So between the both of them, they always encouraged me to like, hey, there's more to the world than the small-minded mentality of what we're surrounded by, right? So
Yeah.
I think I got completely off course of what your question
No.
was, but that decision to leave Arizona, leave Ohio and go to Arizona, that was easy. I was just waiting for that opportunity,
Yeah.
right? I was, and my grandmother, she always told me, she's like, you were meant to do something special. She would tell me this all the time. And, years later, I tell people this story and they're like, that's what grandmas say. They tell everybody that. Like, well, I believed her. Like, I
Yeah,
believed her,
exactly.
right?
I'm taking that, running with that.
Yeah, yeah. But for longest time, it kind of felt like a curse in a way, because I was trying to find this thing, right? I'm
Yeah.
like, what am I meant to do? And even when I went to college, I changed my major twice before I even started my first class. It was elementary school, then physical therapy, then I was going to be a FBI profiler, like
Nice.
all of these things, architecture. So from the time I graduated high school until 38 when I quit my job, I'd had probably close to 30 jobs, and just trying to find this path, right? And never thought that I would be self-employed, right? But when I started doing the podcasting, and then especially when I got into craft beer, because for me, craft beer and the food world, in general, is very, it hits me in the heart, because there's a lot of blue collar behind it, right? It's a
Yeah.
hardworking industry, but it's also creative. It's also very artistic, right? So
Mhm.
so for me, that blended both worlds of creativity, mixed with like, hard work, and I just resonated with both of those. So when I started the beer podcast, I'm like, okay, like maybe this is me doing something on my own. And then when the opportunity came, easy decision. I was like, all right, I'm like, I'm out of here. Like I was doing horrible at my job too. Like I was, man, I was so bad. Like, so I worked at University of Phoenix for like 10 years as an academic advisor, right? And I did really good at that. And that kind of really trained me for all of the stuff that I do now. It's added like a kind of a corporate system mindset
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
organizing the business, but then also the students that I would talk to, my role specifically was to get students who had dropped out within 2 or 3 classes to get them back into school and finish their degree. So I had to call people, cold call them, and like, hey, I know 30 people have called you this month, but you got to come in and you got to get this algebra class done. You got to do it. So it trained me on the art of the conversation. So when I started interviewing people on the podcast and like kind of getting their story,
Ah.
it all just lined up. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, like yeah, this is a skill. This is something, right? So I leave University of Phoenix to go to this debt relief company because everybody was leaving University of Phoenix to this debt relief company. It was a sales job. So they're doubling, tripling, quadrupling their income, right, by doing this debt relief job. So I'm like, man, like I outperformed those guys at University of Phoenix. I'm gonna kill it. Like my
Yeah.
wife and I always joke, we're like, I'm gonna crush it. I would always say, I'm gonna crush it.
We're getting a double size house.
Oh, dude, I had lists, I had wish lists. Dude, I did so bad. Like I went into probably, I don't know, 6 months before I quit. Went into the director called me into his office, and he was one of the people that interviewed me, and he's just like, what is going on? Like, why
Mm.
are you? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't understand. And I finally was like, he was like, he goes, you are like 255, ranked 255 in this company. He's like, that's where, like, as far as sales go. And I'm like, or he's like, you're second to last. And I was like, hey, at least I'm not last. And he's like, the only reason you have more than him is because he hasn't been here for 8 months. I'm like,
You're like,
okay,
I am last.
yeah. So he's like, what's going on, man? And I was like, I don't want to be here. I'm like, and by this time, the beer podcast is already rolling. We're starting to do a few
Yeah.
events with my previous business partner. And I'm like, I don't want to be here, man. And that was, probably one of the first times I was truly honest with,
Yeah.
somebody that wasn't like super close to me, right? Where I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on. I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. So my wife and I found this, going to school, University of Phoenix online, advising students online. I had that experience. So I found this company called VIP Kid.
Mm.
Have you ever heard of VIP Kid?
I have not.
It's wild, man. So you teach kids in China English, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I would get up at like 4 in the morning.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
they had all the curriculum ready for you. So it'd be like a 30-minute Zoom call like this. And I would have my curriculum ready. And then I would do a Zoom call with a kid in China. It's evening for them, but it's 4 in the morning for me. And it was wild, man. Like it was a wild experience because, I don't speak Chinese. They don't speak English, but it's like an immersive type of thing, right? So it was really cool to teach these kids. But it was also like, if we had some time at the end, we could kind of do whatever. And I would say,
Mhm.
draw a picture of your house. And they would draw a high rise and they would put a window up here.
Ah,
Because weren't living in houses. They were living in huge like
yeah,
skyscrapers,
right. In
right?
cities in like Shanghai or whatever.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So that was the bridge. That was the bridge for like, all right, once
Got you.
the longer
Yes.
you do it, I could get my schedule filled, and that could be that financial bridge. And then finally one day, like I was just like at my wits end, and I text my wife. I'm like, I got to get out of here,
Yeah.
and she's like, this is the debt relief company. She's like, quit. I was like,
Mm.
I was like, all right, don't f with me. Like what? Like for real? She's like, "Well, come home tonight. Come home tonight. Let's talk about it." And I went home. We talked about it, and she's like, "Yeah, do it." She's like, "You're there. It's a sales job. You're not making any sales. You're not making. This is
Right.
like a
You
perfect
don't
time
wanna
to
make
do it."
sales. You don't even wanna do it, right? And if you're trying to
Yeah,
sell something you don't believe in, it's almost impossible to sell it unless
yeah,
you're just one of these people that just knows how to sell.
yeah. Yeah, and to me, it was the universe. That was the universe stepping in and
I would
saying,
agree.
"Get
Yeah.
out of here.
This is
Get
not meant
out
this
of
is not what
here."
you're meant to do.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
because dude, they would record your calls, or they could like our managers could tap into our calls, which adds another level of anxiety, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
They're listening
Wow.
in. And so I'd get off a call and they would be like, "I don't get it, man." They're like, "You're doing everything right." Like 99% of the people wouldn't have, like they would have closed that, but I don't
Yeah.
you didn't do anything wrong. It just something happened. I don't know what happened. And then I'm like, it's the universe. The universe is stepping in and saying, get out. Like you need to, you know. So yeah,
Yeah.
I told my
Mhm.
manager, I went in, I was like, hey dude, and he was a big supporter of mine too. He was like, he wanted me to get out of there too. So I'm like, hey man, I'm like, I'm done. He's like, all right. Sends, it's a sales
It's like
job.
giving
So
you a high five, like, I was waiting for this day.
yeah, he was so excited, and that was, and that's just. I'm very grateful for all of the people in my life, including you, like just people that are um, have this significant presence and impact on my life at the times that I really need it, right? So yeah, yeah, those were easy decisions. Those were easy decisions to make.
And this is why we're calling it story time, because that's
Yeah,
fantastic. Because I think when we met, you were doing the English classes because you had just
yeah,
started the podcast, and I remember talking to you about that. I didn't remember what it was called, the VIP Kid, but I thought
yeah,
that was kind of cool in that, okay, I'm transitioning out into something I really, really want to do because there's this pull towards it. Because I'm a big believer in that. Because how I found radio was a pull. So when I was
yeah,
14 years old, my voice changed. Two random people said to me, "You have a great radio voice." And I was like, "What? Okay, people do that?" So
yeah,
I was able to start paying attention to that. And my high school, a random place in the middle of, I mean, it's south of Boston, two towns, Whitman and Hanson, had a radio broadcasting class. So I took that, and it was really fun because I got to not do math and I got to
yeah,
create, and I got that first dose of creativity. And I remember one of the first things I created. So Boston has the T, right? Like a subway system, and it
okay,
has the
yeah,
electronic third rail. So my friend Dave and I did a PSA about the third rail and not touching the third rail. And he
Nice.
did the voice, and I was like doing the voiceover, the main voiceover, and he would comment and go, "The third rail." And, it's like that
That's great.
moment where you realize, oh, this is cool. This is fun because I get to make something because you talked about the universe. I think the universe knows that we're all creators, and our
Yeah,
job is to create because you create good things in the world. And I'd say that over your career in creating, you brought so many people together, whether it's over a beer or over a meal at one of your festivals. You're highlighting people that are creating their own restaurant in their foods. So I love this tie-in that you just followed this creative pull and you're still doing it. So take me
yeah,
back to that when you said, "Okay, I'm going all in on my creativity and my creative ventures." Even
yeah.
leaving the teaching the Chinese students English.
Yeah, yeah. So I quit my job April 25th of 2018, right?
He knows the
And
date. I love it. He knows the date of
yeah, yeah,
freedom.
I do. I do. I remember that day clearly. I remember walking out of that building. I remember the Pink Floyd song that was playing when like time. It
Wow.
was
It's a
perfect.
visceral
Yeah,
moment. Yeah.
very
Mhm.
much so. And it's same thing with the decisions weren't easy, but there were times where I'm like, oh shit, what did I do? I'm driving
Of
home. I'm
course.
like,
Of
oh man,
course.
like this is a big thing. Um, so my business partner at the time, we ended up parting ways just a few months later, right? So all this stuff that I had in mind of like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to have this event company. We're going to have this. We launched AZ Food and Beer. We're going to have this website, a podcast. Going to be creating content. We're going to have the festivals, right? That was, and we'd had a couple festivals, little events that we
Yeah.
did. We did like a walkabout Gilbert. We did one in Flagstaff. Um, but then you know, here I am, I quit my job. And then a few months later, I start to kind of see just little signs of like just us both kind of seeing things differently.
Mm.
Um, and so I'm like, oh man, like I can't do this. Like I can't, and that was a little bit of a harder decision to just let them know, like, hey man, we're just
Huge.
not aligning. Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
aligning, and I need to go a different direction.
Well, and I
So
could see
by
too how it impacts bringing on another business partner later in Luke, right? As the
yeah,
business changed and evolved, you have this experience where you got to let one go. So there might be some angst in that. So
yeah,
that makes more sense why this would be a difficult decision to bring,
for sure.
to work with Luke. Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah. But then I met Luke in June. Luke just was, he is, at this point he had just turned 21. So he was just experiencing craft beer. And then he found my podcast.
Nice.
He found Tap.az. He's like, man, I would love to connect with you. So he actually met me at a festival. He came to a festival and he helped me at my table. He sold merch, gave out stickers
Nice.
while I was doing a podcast. And it just kind of blossomed from there. Like, we stayed in contact and we'd work on a few things together. He would come to some of my podcasts and, take photos. And, but then it wasn't until me and my former business partner split ways that Luke and I were finally like, hey, let's do let's do a book. Cause he had publishing experience. I didn't, and I was like,
Mhm.
ah, man, that's a big deal. Like, this is a big thing. We're publishing a book. So then it just kind of started building from there. And I started to see that his work ethic and his values and all those core things we were aligned on, right? We were completely different. Like he was very open. He was like, I've had a kind of a cushy life. I grew up very comfortable,
Mhm.
but I want to grow. I want to push myself. And,
Mm.
we're, pitching breweries to be part of this book. And
Yeah.
partway through the meetings, he would have panic attacks. Like he would like I could see him over there and he's breathing hard and I'm like, and we'd make eye contact. I'm like, you're good,
Yeah.
man. You're good,
I'll
and
take over here. You just chill
yeah.
for a minute.
And sometimes he would get up and excuse himself and then he would come back. But every time, like, we had a meeting coming up, he was there. He was like, hey man, I was having a panic attack before this, but he just kept pushing himself. And
Nice.
and so what we bring to the table are two completely different mindsets and different skill sets, but we align in those values and our work ethic and the fact that we want to provide a ton of value for people that are that we're working with,
Yeah.
that we want to be honest about like what we're doing. We want to be, we both understand how important trust is in the media world, right? Like of especially we're covering restaurants and stuff, and you know to to represent or say, hey, we recommend you go to this restaurant because we truly believe it, and not
Right.
because that restaurant said, hey, we'll pay you if you tell people you should come here, right?
Yeah.
So we've always aligned in that aspect, and I've learned a lot from him. Like I've learned a lot on the business side. He's taught me so much about business, and actually got me interested in learning about business, because I was always like, I'm a creative man, like I just want to do my thing, you
Right.
know you take care of that stuff, right? I was already in sales, I was already doing this stuff, I don't want to do that stuff anymore. And then comes full circle, it's like, well, now I have to do business development and all this stuff. But then I've also helped him be more comfortable around people and be, with the relationship side and the networking side and all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
That's a
it's
good team right there to
it is
complement each other, right? That's how
for
you win
sure.
championships. And I always think
Yeah,
about this from a team standpoint in studying, teams that win NBA championships or World Series. I'll use the 2004 Boston Red Sox as an example. If you watch any of the documentaries on them, it's clear how well they got along and how they had each other's backs and how they wanted to help each other get better. And I know you and Luke, you have more teammates now, but you guys are the two main guys. So you
yeah,
guys are the leaders, right? So that communication has to be important. Understanding that you approach each of your skills in a different way, but combined, you almost have like you magnify your impact because you get
100%.
to do what you do, and that's what makes it work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's we're finding that dynamic out even more, right? Because I kind of I read this article in Entrepreneur Magazine. It was really cool. And this is like an example of the law of attraction. And my
Mm,
wife is, so I kind of, I don't say I introduced her to the idea, but like my grandmother always, she bought me the book The Secret, and she was always about manifestation and all this stuff. And so I was always interested in that. So I would talk to my wife about it, and then my wife started like, she's like, yeah, I believe in this. So she's like, dude, she's a conduit for this stuff. Like she is incredible, like at believing, believing it and manifesting it. Where
making it
it's
happen.
fun.
Yeah.
yeah, where I'm kind
Mhm.
of like, I know it, but I got the doubts that are kind of, blocking things. Um, but I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say?
Manifesting the secret, making it happen.
What was your question right before then?
Oh, I don't even remember at this point. I don't remember what the question was. But
Well, I
this
guess
is what
just
happens, right? This is, why we do this.
well, that's my mind goes all over the place sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's but I guess we were talking about the partnership, like
Yeah.
with Luke, right? And the way that we're able to, um, the law of attraction, right? I got it back. So I was reading
See,
this
it always comes
article.
back. It's like a boomerang.
It is. Give it the space. Give it the space to come back. So I was reading this article, and this is I don't know, maybe a year ago in Entrepreneur Magazine. It was like it was the one of the first sections, and it was like this guy Jake Carl's, him and his sister and his brother-in-law own a company called Midday Squares. So they're like a protein chocolate bar thing, right? And Jake is he's really good on social media. He's a character, right? So I read this article, and it really just hit me at the right time, right? Because I tend to put labels on stuff and put pressure on myself of like, all right, I'm a sales guy. I need to get sales. I need to generate revenue and all. And by doing it that way, I put this pressure on
Yeah.
myself, and I'm just like, oh man, like I don't like this.
That sums
And
up my first 2.5, almost 3 years of business right there, Eric, is that
yeah,
constant pressure of trying to force things,
for
right?
sure.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
calling yourself this and saying, no, I got to do all the things. I got to do all the aspects of business.
yeah. Even the parts I don't like the
Yeah.
sales, it's like, well, just reframe what it is. And that's
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
I'm currently working on. But this article really helped me with it, because Jake was like, he was like the CMO of his company, the chief marketing officer, and all this, right? And all these things that entailed that role, he hated it, and he was starting to
Mm.
get beat down. As I'm reading this article, I'm like, man, this is me right now. And he was like, so he met with his business partners, and they've decided like, hey, you know what, your role is, you're the chief rainmaker, Jake, right? You are the guy who's you're going to go talk to people, you're going to be the one speaking on stage, you're going to be the one, you're going to be one kind of teeing us up, building these
Mhm.
relationships, right, making things happen. But all the pressure is not on you to do this, right? But you're our rainmaker, you're the one that makes it happen. So I'm like, that's my role. That's my role within our company. And I'm the one out there just, it's funny. Luke always jokes. He's like, dude, no matter where we're at, he's like, you just strike up a conversation with somebody. And I don't even try. I'm just like, oh, hey, man, I like, what's your dog? And then we just start talking. I'm like, oh, dude,
Yeah.
you're from Youngstown. Oh, I went to East Palestine, So that's just my natural thing, right? So I can make all these different connections with people, and I'm organized, so I can do it in a way that's like, hey, give me your card, I'll reach out to you. And then the next day I'm like, hey, it was really nice meeting you. Let's grab coffee next week, right? So I'm very strategic with that. But where I sometimes struggle is when it comes to the part where it's like, okay, now you know what we do, I know what you're looking for, all right, let's figure out something, right? And I'm like where Luke comes in, Luke's the
Nice.
closer. Luke understands how to hear those things and how to connect. Like, there's so many times in meetings where I'm just like, hey, Audrey, this is Luke, this is my business partner, I was telling you all about him. Luke, this is Audrey, we've been talking about this and this. Luke, one thing we were thinking about is doing this. And Luke's like, okay, great. Audrey, nice to meet you. Yeah. So what I'm thinking is something, something. And then he'll ask her a few questions. And she's like, well, we're looking to kind of get, these are the type of people we're looking to get. He's like, all right, well, what if instead of this, what if we created this for you guys? Because I think this would add this value to what you're doing. And they're like, what? Like, holy crap. Like, how
Yeah,
did
because
you
it gives like a whole different perspective for them.
whole different
Mhm.
perspective, and he really gets it. He gets messaging, he gets like brand, like consistency, all these things that 99% of the people out there haven't got from somebody, right?
Yeah.
Because they're probably just talking to people like me that are like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
just don't fully get it, right? Like, and that's something that I've been able to embrace and be good with, is like, you know what, I'll get him here, I'll tee you up, Luke, but you're our closer, right? Like, you're, and there are certain instances where I can kind of take it from A to Z. But there are other ones that we get to a point now where I'll just call him like, hey man, here's kind of what I'm thinking. Am I missing anything? And he's like, well, if you think about it this way, with this, and this, and I'm like, shit, man, that's incredible. Like that,
Yeah,
So you were talking earlier about your powers combined. It's a multiplication problem. Multiplication.
absolutely.
It's not addition. It's not me plus him equals this. It's me times him equals
Absolutely.
this. Yeah,
Exponential.
for sure. Yeah. So that's been an incredible thing, and that also takes humility on both of our parts to be like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm not the one doing all this, and
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not the one doing all this. Like, but together we're able to do this. So yeah,
No, I think you're spot on. And it's really smart to think about that because my entrepreneurial journey has been up, it's been down, it's been up and down. And every entrepreneur I talk to, whether you're a small business owner, whether you're running a media company like a Taste of AZ, like you guys are, we all have that experience where you get a win and then it takes sometimes a long time to get your second win and you're feeling really down and you're like, what am I doing? Because there's the big concept of doing it on your own is the whole world is your oyster, which sounds great, but it's the whole world.
yeah,
Like when I worked in radio, I had a deadline every day. My last show started at 4 o'clock. So whatever I had to do to get ready for 4 o'clock, I did.
yeah,
But now I don't have a deadline necessarily. So you're trying to work your way through things and figure out what you're really good at and what you really like to do and what gives you energy versus what takes your energy away. And
yeah,
that's the big part of being an entrepreneur is I got into it just like so many for freedom. I didn't want to have a schedule. I didn't want to be stuck in a studio forever. I didn't want to only have 4 weeks of vacation, so to speak. But
yeah,
that concept of freedom is overwhelming sometimes.
for
So, what's
sure.
your experience, Eric, in going from University of Phoenix, debt relief company, teaching students English, to being full entrepreneur over the last few years? So, how do you relate to freedom, and what have you learned about yourself and your exploration of it?
Yeah, I mean, what a great word for that too, right? I mean, like if I could sum up like my why in one word, it's freedom, right?
Mm,
It's the freedom to do what I want to do when I want to do it, you know having the financial freedom to be able to do when I want to do it, right? But you're right though, that full freedom is like it's overwhelming at times, right?
Especially the first time you step in it, you're like, I have a million options. Which one do I pick?
Yeah, yeah. My daughter, one of my daughters is a very good artist, really good drawing. And one of her friends, they're in a band, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to do an album cover for us." And she's like, "All right, cool. Like, what do you have in mind?" They're like, "Whatever." She's like, "Well, what's the title of the album? We don't have an album, So gave her no parameters. And my
Yeah.
my wife was like, she's like, that's great. You can really do whatever you want. And I'm like, what? And actually, like creatives actually work much better when they're given parameters, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to, like, what is this? I can
Some
think out.
guardrails or a theme or something that I can go
Yeah.
with.
Well, think about it this way is like, thinking outside the box. Well, there has to be a box to be able to think outside of it, right?
Yes.
It doesn't say think in the free space. It's like think outside the box. All right, well, you constructed this box for me. Great. Now I can think outside of it. Uh, so, so that I would say that's what I'm striving for, right? I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. But not in I want to say not in a selfish way, but not in a like I want to do what I want to do. Like it's more like if I have an idea and I want to explore it, I want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Um, I want to have the freedom to, but also there's a quote that I always tell myself is you have to do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do, right? And so I have these creative ideas of things that I want to do, and like we could make a really cool video series right now. Like we could do really whatever we want. We have the capabilities of it. We have Luke's really good at that, but for what, right? I mean that's one of those the hidden things of like good form video, shot on a nice camera. It's like
Yeah.
where are you going to release this, and how is this going to be? Because a lot
How's
of
it tie
times,
into the audience, right? You got to think about
yeah,
the back end of it, so to speak.
for sure. And then once it
Mhm.
goes out, then what? Like, what's the follow up then, right? So, or there are things that I want to do. I sent you that video of the music sessions that I did with Simple Machine.
Yeah.
And I want to do more of that, but it takes a lot of time.
Absolutely.
So for me, I've realized, like, all right, for me to do what I want to do, I have to do what I have to do, right? And so if I want to create a cooking video series with like all the top chefs in Arizona, well, for that to make sense, I need to get our business up, right? I need to get us more partners, more sponsorships, more advertisers, and things like that to be able to execute that on the level that I want to execute it at. Yeah, I could take my phone and we can do something that's whatever, right? But realizing that I got to put in the work and the time to make it happen the way that I want to make it happen, right? Because even those videos of the simple sessions that I sent you, I was like, this is good. Like, I'm proud of it because I did this whole thing. I recorded it, I edited it, everything, but I want the quality to be better. And for the quality to be better, I need to do this work over here, right? So there's freedom in that aspect, but that doesn't completely free you from doing the work, right?
No, totally.
Um,
Hmm.
so, but yeah, the freedom. I mean, that's where that's my big thing is I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, and you know, so yeah,
I think that's, honestly, I think that's the way. So I work with a woman in Sedona. Her name is Juliet Trinka, and that's her big, really belief is that when I do the things that I feel that I'm called to do, even if it appears selfish, everyone benefits from that because I'm into it. I'm a hell yes, and I do it. And then everyone else seems to be a hell yes too. So there is
yeah,
something magical about being able to say that, admit that, and do that, what you want to do as often as possible. Because I think most of us that have jobs, and even my radio job, most of it was awesome. But 20, 25, at times 70% of the job I didn't like to do. And
yeah,
I'm like, do I really want to do this for another 20 years or 30 years where it's not fully awesome? It's mostly awesome. And that's great.
yeah,
But that was why I wanted to step more into my own thing where I can take that percentage. And if I can get closer to 85% or 90%, that's better than 70%.
yeah,
And maybe
for
the
sure.
financial awards at the beginning aren't as lucrative as being the number one rated host in Phoenix, But
Yeah, yeah,
I don't miss that part of it because of the grinding aspects of it that grinded my gears and wore me out. So
yeah,
there's that other element of freedom that I touch on, Eric, that is my self freedom. And not just in doing what I want to do, but the freedom to learn about myself, the freedom to challenge myself, the freedom to look at like an old belief, like we talked about at the very beginning, right? Like a conditioned belief growing up in
yeah,
suburban Boston and what that means, or Youngstown and what that means, to be able to kind of let that go and create my own way of living
yeah.
versus my own job. So I think that there's so much bigger than just work that you're touching on here.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, the freedom to do it the way that you want to do it,
Yeah.
right? Because at another job, they're like, "All right, cool idea, do it this way. This is the way you got to do it." I'm like, "It doesn't work for me, though." They're like, "Well, got to do it,
Yeah,
right?"
exactly.
So, but that's also to me that's been one of the biggest struggles too, right? Where it's like where you have all of this freedom, so you start doing things and you start doing things that you think are right, but maybe you're not getting any sort of feedback or anything like that, and you're like, am I doing the right stuff, right? I mean, I think that's a question that entrepreneurs ask themselves all the time, like, am I even spending my time doing the right
Of
things?
course.
And there'll be times where I'll look back, I'm like, I did all of that, and like it all just went in the trash, right? But
Yeah.
that's part of it, though. Like, that's part of it. I mean, look at writers like that. It's the stereotypical image of the writer with the garbage can of the piles of crumbled paper, right?
Exactly. Yes.
But that's how you get to the good stuff. Is you have to you just kind of work your way through it, right? And learn all along the way, right? I would say I don't think there's anything that I've ever done where I haven't learned a lesson from that
Yeah.
of some
Mhm.
sort, right? Whether maybe it was a way of doing things, or maybe it was even something that's completely not related. It's like, all right, well, that didn't work out, but you know what? I met this guy. I met this person in my life, and had I not been doing that, I never would have crossed that person's path. So that's right. It comes down to mindset and how do you perceive things? How do you see things?
Oh, I love
Um,
that you brought up mindset because that's it. You need to have a strong mindset to be an entrepreneur.
for sure.
So, how do you relate to mindset and how do you work through difficult times? And what have you learned about that in your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh man, a ton. I think that's one of the paths, and we've talked about this. Like the mindset thing is something I've always had an interest in, but over the past few years,
Mhm.
I mean, quitting drinking. I'm gonna let my dog out real quick.
See, this is why we do it live. The dog needs to go, the dog needs to eat. And Eric, as a good dog dad, is taking care of business.
Oh yeah, the
What's your
wife just
dog's name?
home. Charlie,
Charlie.
she's a little Havanese. She's great, but she's my wife's dog. So like, if she hears Jackie, she's like,
Yes.
like
Got to go
I'm
say
not.
hi.
Yeah, yeah. So question again. What was the question?
Question was about the transition, or the trajectory of
Mindset.
your career and how that mindset and that mindset work has evolved over this, what, 8, 9 years.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting because I feel like I've always had a good mindset. I think mindset is I've always being able to kind of see the bright side of things. But that, there were times in my life where that was chipped down. Like that was, I
Sure.
would say, probably 4 or 5 years ago, it was really down. Like it was really like I was just like I was a wreck. And that's one of the things that led me to stop drinking, because I wanted to do things for myself that I knew uh I knew would help my mindset, because I got to a point where I felt like I kind of plateaued mentally, and I felt
Mm.
like I was at decision fatigue, and you know, my body just wasn't accepting alcohol the way it was, previously. I'd have, halfway through a beer and I got a headache, or if I'd had a beer at lunch, I'm
Your
tired
body
the
was
rest
giving
of
you
the day.
signs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then I couldn't gain momentum, right? Like, if it's Friday night, I have a few beers, and probably a couple on, a few on Saturday night, and it was Tuesday before I started feeling okay again, and then
Yeah.
so it was just this cycle of just not making progress. Like anytime I would make progress, it would be, but I'm like, all right, I've been wanting to journal for a long time. I've been wanting to get into meditation, um, you know, eating better, exercising. So I knew those things would really help with my mindset. And I'm like, all right, well, when I quit drinking and I was going to try it out for 30 days of not drinking, I'm like, all right, I'm going to start journaling. I'm going to start meditating. And then I started to hit a streak of like, a week, 2 weeks. And I was looking forward to journaling. I wasn't, you know,
Ah, nice.
yeah. So now I look forward to it. I love it. Like before I go to bed, I'll sit down, put the headphones on, and I don't even know what I'm going to write about that night, but I'll just, I'll write something. And sometimes I'll be writing about something. I'm like, all right, I don't want to write about this anymore.
Yeah.
No, I just fill a page. That's my goal, is to fill a page.
Nice.
So I started to do things that would help my mindset, that would help me um, really disconnect from the subconscious, right? Those things that are the deeply, that's our primal brain, that's, protecting us.
Yeah.
Um,
Runs in the background. You're not even aware of it until
yeah,
you call it into awareness.
for sure. Yeah. And so that's one of the big pieces of it, is like be able to identify when it's that subconscious that's kind of taking control, and I can just like, I'm like, oh, wait a second, like, no, like it could be, I send an email to somebody and they're like, oh yeah, reach out to me, I'll get to you by Friday. And Friday comes, I'm like, man, what the hell? Like they must not like us. And this whole thing just starts to grow, right? and and sometimes, I mean, for a long time, for years, that would last for days, and that would compound into all these things, from them not getting back to me, to everybody hates our company and we're going to crumble, and it's going
Sure.
to the
Yeah.
wife's going to leave me,
That
all that
voice
stuff.
that comes out of nowhere and tells you all the worst
Yeah,
things in the world.
and it just keeps growing, and you're feeding it, it's growing, it's growing, it's growing. Where what I was able to finally start to do is be like, that's bullshit. Like you just made all that up. And I kind of joke, and I've even implemented talking to myself of
Yeah.
you physically using my conscious mind to tell my subconscious like simmer down, it's fine, we're
Go in the
good.
corner. I'm not listening to
Yeah,
you right now.
yeah, exactly. So just understanding that part of it is it's like, we're not our thoughts, right?
Yes.
Which is a hard thing to kind of grasp at first,
Yes.
but knowing that we're not, and that subconscious, it's doing its job. It's trying to protect us.
Absolutely. But having a good
So
relationship with it helps you understand what it's doing and what its role is so that it's not driving you as often as it was 5 years ago.
for sure, for
Hmm.
sure. And what I'm learning too is as you set it at ease more, the more it's realizing like, okay, all right, we're cool,
Yeah.
good. And I can start to, it's almost like, it's trained. It's like, it's kind of hit its stop, and now it's backing up, right? Because the brain's like, okay, we're good. Like, so now you can, I'm starting to see little hints of using that subconscious to my advantage, right? Um, and as you're able to interject more and just stop it in its tracks, of just like, hey, like chill out, man.
Yeah.
That's big. So yeah, mindset for me has been huge. And I mean, honestly, to me, I feel like entrepreneurship is 90% mindset, right? You can learn how to do this, you cannot learn how to do this, you can hire a salesperson, you can learn how to do sales, you can learn how to do marketing. How are you mentally though? Like, how are you getting better? Are you getting
Yeah.
stronger? Do you want to get better? Do you want to get stronger?
Exactly.
So yeah, yeah,
Let's talk about food because mindset ties into
yeah,
this
yeah,
too. Because
yeah,
when I look at what you guys do at A Taste of AZ, it's very similar to what I do. And it's taken me almost 3 years to realize what it is I actually do. And it finally has dawned on me that I work with standard bearers. In the history of a standard bearer, it goes back to the military application. The standard bearer was the person that carried the flag that, I'll say it's America, right? You're carrying the American flag, so the American troops know where to go. Like you're showing the way literally, and you're brave enough to hold the flag.
yeah,
So in the modern application, we don't have to make it military, but I think it's industry changers. It is people that do things their own way with their own creativity that want to put their own spin on, say, a restaurant that you guys cover a lot of. So what I love about what you do at A Taste of AZ is giving me the stories of some of these restaurant standard bearers, some of these chefs that are doing tremendous things with food to give you a unique experience when you either go out with your friends or you take your partner out and you can have a special occasion. And it might just be a Tuesday night special occasion. What drew you to these chefs, right? You had a beer background, you got into beer, it was the same thing. You really gravitated towards the standard beers in the Arizona craft beer industry. Now you're doing it with restaurants. What was
yeah,
that for you, Eric, to get you to sit down at these tables and have these conversations with some of these great chefs?
yeah. I mean, it was, what I loved about uh, doing the beer podcast was it was the people, right? It was getting people's stories, right? And that goes back to University of Phoenix, where I'm talking to these students, and when I was able to get them on the phone and be like, hey, why are you in school? And like, oh, I'm doing it for my kids. And 99% of people would be like, okay, well, this and this. And then when they start, stop, participating in class, or like, hey, I thought you were doing this for your kids, they don't care, because that's not why they really were doing it, right? So my job was to be like, well, what do you mean for your kids? Well, I would let them know that, if you put your mind to something, you know you can do it, right? You can accomplish it. I'm like, yeah, but why is that important to you? Well, because my mom, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. So you want to prove to your mom that you can finish this, right? Like,
Yeah.
because you don't want to, the surface motivation is like, I'm doing it for my kids. That's easy. That's easy to just, but you start to get good at those conversations and start to dig, and maybe it is for their kids, but you learn a little bit more about it. And then, not for this to sound bad or anything, but then you can use that to help them stick to it, right?
Absolutely.
Um, like, wait a minute, like Cheryl, like you, like this is important for you to do this. Like, you only have 2 weeks left. Like,
Right.
um,
Just
remember
finish
you,
up. You're almost
yeah, yeah.
there.
So that human connection was what I really thrived at University of Phoenix. So then when I started doing it, we did a few interviews on the music podcast, and the first one we did was Gabo from Fayuca here locally in Phoenix, right? Gabo, awesome dude. He's been touring with Sublime. I don't know if I told you that or not.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
So
Cool.
he's friends with Jacob Knoll, Bradley Knoll's son, who's now, the singer for Sublime. And it
Mhm.
sounds like I'm like the new Sublime album I think it's pretty
Oh,
incredible.
I didn't
Uh,
even know they had one out. I'll have to check it out.
yeah. Yeah. So I think it's the final. It's like kind of closing the door on
Yeah.
Sublime, because they never were able to, right? They released that album and Bradley had died like a few weeks before or whatever it was. So now Jacob, his son, is a musician. He came on board, and they did this album. I think it's going to be the last Sublime album, but Gabo, my friend Gabo, he is a touring guitarist with Sublime, which is actually pretty badass. I saw
That's
like a Spin magazine post, and I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." It's like, Sublime playing at Red Rocks, and I'm going through. I'm like, "Dude, that's Gabo," and he's up on stage playing, and he's up on the screen. So it was just really cool. So when we interviewed him, and it was through this was on Skype because this was like in 2016. My friend that did the podcast with me, he's like, afterwards, he's like, dude, he's like, that was incredible. He's like, how did you learn to interview like that? I'm like, oh shit, I learned that from University of Phoenix, right?
it's like it was
Uh,
training you. That's so
yeah,
funny. Yeah.
for sure. So we did a few interviews on the music podcast, but then that's where Tap.az, that was the whole premise of that. I'm going to come into your tap room. We're going to sit down.
By
And
the way, phenomenal name. Tap that AZ, by
yeah,
the way.
yeah,
That is Eric Walters' creativity right there. It's a perfect
yeah.
name for a beer podcast.
Yeah, I've gotten so many more comments about the name of it. I'm like, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
podcast.
I
Like, we
know.
don't care.
And then we thought the Brewmance was great. Mike Russell and I had the Brewmance, which, by the way,
It's
you
great.
talked about the AZ beer book on there, and I think we had you on
Yeah,
another time, or I don't know, 3, 4 times. So go check those out. We thought the
yeah,
Brewmance was great, but we were jealous of Tap That AZ.
yeah. That was a good one. That
Yeah,
was a good one. I almost did 400 episodes with that. And the
wow,
irony of it, the very last episode I did was a non-alcoholic beer. Like, we did a review of a non-alcoholic beer.
nice.
And then I just quit that podcast for a little bit. And then a year later or so, I quit drinking, which was like, it was just wild that it turned out
Yeah.
that way. But
That's a pattern I see with you, Eric, right? You learn how
yeah,
to interview at your job, University of Phoenix, leads you to a podcast. It's music first. Then it becomes a beer podcast. Then you do a non-alcoholic beer. A year later, you stop drinking. And now here we are doing food.
still eating
Still
like
eating.
crazy.
We got to eat. We got to eat. Might as well eat well.
Yeah, but so to kind of bring it full circle, that to me it was always about the people, right? It was always about the passion behind the
Yeah.
people, and what I loved about craft beer, and you see this in the restaurant world. I don't think not as much, but you see people come from a different industry. People that are like, I'm tired of working in IT. I'm tired of working
Mm,
in insurance. I'm going to start a brewery, right? So when I was interviewing them, it was getting to the heart and soul of it, and sometimes, and even now, I forget to talk about the food or we forget to talk about the beer because it's about the people.
mm,
And so I did a podcast with Helio Basin. Remember Helio Basin?
do.
So their chef, so they had food and like legit food. So when I set up a podcast with them, they're like, "Hey, would you want to have our chef Tamara join?" Like, yeah, sure. Because I'd been there and eaten. I'm like, that food is incredible. And she changed my whole world. Like, she changed like the way that I viewed food, because I liked I liked craft beer because it was blue collar. It was kind of like, it was a little bit, I don't want to say edgy, but it
Yeah,
wasn't.
yeah,
I thought of food as either, okay, you're either a chain or you're fine dining, right? Not really, or a diner, or whatever. Nothing in between. I didn't think that there were stories like there were in craft beer. But then I got Tamara on the podcast, and she started talking about foraging and like, oh yeah, the wolfberries that we have on these tacos were foraged, right on the other side of McDowell Mountain. I'm like, wait, what? I'm
yeah.
like, that's really
Oh,
cool.
cool.
So she opened my eyes to the food world. I'm like, okay, there's some really interesting things here. And then, as I'm interested in, not interested to the sense of I really understand it, but like fermentation and sourcing ingredients and how do you use ingredients that are indigenous to where you're at? Like how do you
Yeah.
get a sense of place through your
Especially in the
food?
desert. Like what actually
Yeah,
grows here that you can eat?
so much stuff.
And
That's
yet
what
you
I
would,
learned.
it's so
Yeah,
surprising. Hmm.
for sure. And then Arizona is just wild too. I mean, from Phoenix to Flagstaff, like the ecosystems that are there. I mean, it's unreal.
It really
Um,
is.
yeah. So
People
so for
sleep
me,
on us here in AZ. They think it's all hot and desert, and yeah, half the state is, but half
yeah,
the state is mountains and pine trees and high elevation. A little
yeah,
part of the state is the Red Rocks of Sedona. We have so much diversity in this state. It
for
actually is
sure.
ripe for restaurateurs to be able to pull from and create with.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I mean that's where the food world really came in. For me, it was like, oh wow, and then that opened up so many doors, right? Because there's maybe 110 breweries in the state. There's 12,000 restaurants, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean that includes the Jack in the
Olive
Boxes and
Garden
all
and
that stuff.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, that just opened up the whole world for us.
Well, that's another thing I think is so interesting. So I moved to Arizona in 2007, January of 2007, and the first 2 or 3 years, I thought it was okay. I didn't find the culture, but once I hooked into it, Arizona actually has a really good food scene. It
Yeah,
might not be as glamorous as New York or LA or Chicago, but I like that.
yeah,
And I think what happens a lot, and you can speak to this, is the Valley gives restaurateurs great opportunities for growth because there's so much land and it's
mhm,
easy to open one in say Central Phoenix and then open a second one in Gilbert and then a third one in North Scottsdale and then a fourth one in Goodyear and you can have a big imprint on the valley relatively easily to expand our food culture beyond those chains that we have everywhere too. But if you look, I think that's what Arizona, I would sum it up, Eric, and maybe you agree with me. If you look just a little bit, you're going to find the beauty in the desert, in the beauty in this state, and how Arizona is different from New York, it's different from LA, it's different from Chicago, it's different from Tampa. And that's the best part about it. It has
yeah.
its own style.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to like indigenous ingredients, right? Like Tucson. I just got back from Tucson and I did a podcast with Janos Wilder. And Janos is like he won the best chef in the Southwest, James Beard, which is like, I mean, that's the pinnacle for a chef. And he was like, yeah, he's like, like all the best ones, he's like, I wasn't trying. I was just doing what I was doing, which was, he's from California, but he trained in France, so he's like classically trained. So what he wanted to do with Tucson was use those French techniques and kind of ideologies and use indigenous ingredients, right? Use ingredients that have been growing here for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's talking about a chili relleno, and it was like he was like he put lobster in it and there was like with brie cheese and he's like so I deconstructed this thing it's been here forever and I added a little something different to it so and he was huge on getting Tucson designated as a city of gastronomy by the United Nations. So
Wow.
Tucson and San Antonio are the two cities in the US that have that
Wow.
designation. Yeah, because the big piece of it is like Tucson, around Tucson, it's like the longest, I think it's the longest continually agricultural, I don't even know if that's the right word, but the agricultural centers like in the country. Like
Yeah, that's another wild thing people don't understand it. I didn't understand this for a long time that the valley, like my neighborhood, which is kind of north central Phoenix, used to be like orange groves or citrus farms or whatever it was
yeah,
because citrus grows pretty well here. Native Americans that were here, the indigenous peoples that were here had all kinds of farming going on, even though it's
for sure.
110 degrees in the summer and everybody thinks that's what Phoenix is. I'm like, yeah, it's that and so
Yeah,
much more.
for sure. Well, in what I think is really cool, and I've learned this through, through different chefs. And then, I did a podcast with the I can't remember what it's called, but it's like the birds in the
Mm.
state. I can't remember what the name of the organization is, but they did a beer with Arizona Wilderness. So I did a podcast with them, and they talked about, like, you know, putting native plants in your yard. Like, you'll attract all these different birds and insects if you're putting native plants in your yard. And, you know, palm trees are not good because they take a lot of water. Like, so doing like mesquite, and, so there's
Yeah.
a whole, I think there's a whole movement of like, let's put here what is meant to be here. And there's a, Sinagua malt up in the Verde Valley. They started to grow malt. They would have farmers like, all right, you're currently growing alfalfa, which pulls a ton of water from the Verde River. Let's start growing barley. And if you grow the barley, we'll malt it and then sell it to brewers. So these
Ah,
farms started to do crops that were less, that were taking a lot less water from the Verde Valley, so saving the water,
yeah.
and growing something that, that can be a product that local breweries could buy. And I think one of the problems with it, I don't want to say if it's a problem, but, Arizona Wilderness, I think, uses all that they have to offer, right? So they're like, Wilderness use all of it, so we need to make more if
Yeah.
more people want to, do this.
That's
So
great for economics, right? Your
for
job
sure,
growth, farm growth, more money. Everybody likes more money, right? It's it's
mhm,
it's a beautiful thing. So,
yeah,
I don't want to keep you too much longer, Eric. I mean, you and I can talk for hours. We do it all the time.
yeah,
What does it mean to have a good meal, to sit down at one of these places? You and I were talking before we hit record about a restaurant in Flagstaff called Shifts, which I
yeah,
think Tamara's involved in, right? That you were
yep,
just
yep,
mentioning. That place is phenomenal. My wife and I have gone there on two different occasions and had two completely awesome experiences. So when it comes to you and what you do at A Taste of AZ, what is a good meal? What is that experience, in all you've learned? What are the highlights?
yeah. I mean, there's a range of that, right? That's a full spectrum, right? Because there could be a place like, I go into Bad Jimmy's, and I get a smash burger and some
Yeah.
waffle fries, right? And there's punk music playing, and it's just, you for me, it's the vibe. It's the vibe.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously the food has to be good, but the vibe of a place, you and I remember we went to that Indian restaurant, and it was
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
And like everything was like, they were about 80% there, but they had C-SPAN on the TV, and they had like top 40 music, that like Luke Combs playing. I'm like, oh man, like, I'm like, having some music that matched, because the decor and the dishes that they served it on, everything was so authentic. But they just missed those two pieces. The service was great, right?
Mhm.
So for a place like that, like, I would definitely go back because the service was good, the food was good. Um, but what really blows me away is when you're in a place where all of those elements just kind of come together, right? It's an experience. And I always, you know, here's the thing: is food is so subjective, and each experience is different, right? I could go into a restaurant, have an amazing, incredible experience, and have great service, great everything's great. Another person go in, they're like, dude, I don't know what was going on, but took them 20 minutes to come to our table for drinks. And so
Yeah.
I'll never, um, if someone says that, I'm like, all right, yeah, but if someone's like, oh, dude, that place sucks, I'm like, well, why? Like, did you have a
Yeah.
bad experience, or
Right.
because their food doesn't suck, right? Because they're like, oh, dude, that place is horrible. I'm like,
Yeah, and that
well,
just might be a mismatch for a particular personality that doesn't like
yeah,
doesn't want Indian music, for example.
for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So for me, when it all comes together, whether that's at a Bad Jimmy's with a smash burger and some waffle fries, and the punk music's playing, and I just can, like, I'm immersed in that experience, or going to like a Ren and Wolf,
Yeah.
where, you're surrounded by these, this taxidermied
I know.
animals, and the lights are low, and it's
Looks like a
just
hunting lodge. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. But it all kind of comes together. So for me, honestly, I mean, as much as I love food, the food itself is just a piece of it, right? That's just
Yeah.
a kind of a piece, and it's almost like, for me, and I'll be honest with you, like, my bar is pretty low. Like, people always tell me, like, dude, you love everything. I'm like, I do. Like, I'm
He's a
sorry, like,
happy guy. Eric's a happy
yeah,
guy. But that's great because you see the
yeah.
beauty and you see the positivity and appreciate the creativity that goes into building a restaurant.
Absolutely. And I know how hard it is too,
Yeah.
right? But also like if it's a, people always ask us, always ask me, they're like, well, what if you guys feature these places, but what if you go to a place and it's not good? I'm like, well, by the time it even gets to us, like our writers will be like, they're the ones that pitch us every, we
Ah.
put 4 issues out a year and
Mhm.
we'll say, hey, we're getting ready for the October issue. Send us your ideas. So they'll send us a whole list of ideas. Like, here are the places that we want to cover, and we'll kind of pick and we'll try to make a mix of like, we want to have a wide range of things. So we always tell people like it doesn't get to us. Like if a place is not good, it never even gets to us.
Yeah.
So everything that we're covering, if we're putting them in the magazine, we're vouching for them through, whether it's through us personally or through our writers, right? Um, so uh,
And I do
because
want to point out it's not a paid partnership. So if you see it in a
no,
Taste of AZ, the magazine, or online at a tasteofaz.com, you know it's legit. It's not one of
mhm,
these sly backroom deals. It's something you can trust, is my point, because
for sure.
that's my man right there. Eric
Yeah,
Walters is a
yeah.
trustworthy guy.
I try. I
I do
try,
want
man.
to I do want to end on I want you to tell us about your festivals. I know you got one coming up on Halloween Day.
Yep.
So, and I just love your philosophy of bringing all of these restaurants together in one place so we get to sample so many things and really get a taste of AZ. You're true to your name. So,
Yeah.
how is this idea coming to fruition? You're now doing two a year.
Mhm.
What's the philosophy behind that? What are you bringing to the table for us?
Yeah, so I mean, so Salt River Fields does AZ barrels, bottles, and brews, right? So when we're focused on the beer world, this it's a beer festival that they have. So we would come and set up, and we would do our podcast there. We would hand out magazines, and it was such a cool space. All of the vendors loved it. Like the vendors had a great time. It was very well run. So when we were thinking like, okay, so we've the podcast is rolling, the magazine's rolling, what's our next best step? And like, all right, let's get into events. So we approached Salt River Fields and we're like, hey, we just want your feedback. You guys do a really good job of running festivals. Like we just, we'd love kind of your insight on what it takes to run a good festival, right? So about halfway through the meeting, they're like, well, wait a minute. They're like, well, would you want to partner with us? And we're like, maybe. Like, what does that look
Yeah.
like? And they're like, we'll run it. Like, we'll do security fencing, all of this kind of stuff. We'll run the festival. But these people that you have relationships with, we can't get them. We can't even get them to, we can't even get in touch with them. We don't even know who to get in touch with. If you can get these people to come to do a festival, like that's perfect. That's what we're looking for. So for our January festival, we actually partner with Salt River Fields on that one. The October festival, that's the one. Last year was our first year. We did it all of our own. So we're like,
Oh,
that was a big deal. And in that one, we add a retail element to it. So really, what we want it to be is we want it to be an experience where people can come as soon as they walk in the gate. On the food side of things, they can try anything they want. We want them to try everything. Like we want them, like, you know what? If there are 25 food vendors, we want you to try all 25 of them, right? Because the idea is like you go and you have this little dish of ceviche from Chula, and you're like, holy shit, that's incredible.
I need to
Where,
go.
yeah, and it's they're not huge, so I think last year or in January we had 1,800 people at a Taste of AZ, so. And it's big enough that it feels like an event, but it's small enough so that people can talk, and they're like, oh man, this is incredible. Like, where are you guys at? They're like, oh, we have a location in Greyhawk, we have one in Uptown,
Nice.
so they're like, oh cool, well the festival's over at 5, so we're gonna go there for dinner tonight, right?
Yeah.
So we want them to sample. We don't want to, and there's a time and place for everything, but we didn't want it to be a festival where you pay small ticket price, and then you have to figure out, all right, what do I want to buy, or what do I want to pay for?
Give me the
We
all-in option. Make it easy for me.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And so we had 15 drink tickets, right? So 15 samples, right? Not 15 full drinks. Um, so uh, coming from the craft beer world, beer festivals, we know how those can get sometimes. Those get kind of rowdy. People
Yeah.
get a little bit, they like to indulge. what we realized with our clientele, because the ticket prices are a little bit higher, you know, our book is like, it's a $35 book, which is not, you know, it's they're a little bit elevated
Sure.
experiences. So what we found with that was our clientele was a little bit more mature, a little bit more, when
Into the
when
food scene, into the fine spirits.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And there were several people, we had tables kind of set up everywhere, cocktail tables and you know, throughout the festival, maybe somebody would be leaving and they would take off their lanyard that, you would mark off your drink things on there and they would set it on the table or they would throw them in the garbage or whatever. And I would glance over and I'd be like, eight. They marked off eight. So this person only had eight drinks. Like, they wasn't like a beer fest where you're trying to pocket extra tickets. So,
Right, exactly.
um,
Yeah, because your
so
cups are, smaller and it's not like a full beer, so you're sampling and sampling and
yeah,
sampling. Mhm.
yeah, and we also have live music, and we have it set up where we have speakers like throughout the festival. So like no matter where you're at, you can hear the live music. It kind of creates a vibe. So that's really what the whole thing is. We love restaurants that create an experience. We wanted to create that, right? We didn't want just a row of tents in a parking lot or in a field. We wanted something that felt intimate, something that felt like you're kind of part of this unit while you're there. Like we're all here together, and trying great food and drinks, man. So that's it.
That's beautiful because you're again back to making it easy for me. I get to sample dozen plus restaurants that I would have to drive all around the valley to do, but I get to do it in one location. And Salt River Fields in the valley is very centrally located, easy to get to off the 101. So that's a perfect
Yep.
venue. In October, perfect weather. January, perfect weather. So you're doing it well, my friend. You're doing it
Yeah.
well.
Thank you. Yeah, we're trying, man. We're trying. It's a lot of fun. Uh, you know, as with anything that's worth doing, it's very challenging at times. But as my wife always says, she's like, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. So I'm
No
like, yeah,
doubt.
all right,
No
yeah,
doubt.
yeah.
Eric
So
Walters, my friend, he is the man at A Taste of AZ. I'm going to give you the final word. I mean, I'll give a close, but any final words for us today? Wisdom, maybe, that you want to impart with us? Any food you want us to try? I don't know. It's a wild card. It's a curveball question.
ooh,
Let's see what you got. See what you
all
come
right,
up with.
man. All right. So, it's a funny thing. People ask, when I quit drinking, they're like, "Did you lose weight?" And I was like, "Not really, because I found cheesecake. I know where to find the best cheesecake, milkshakes." So I've been really into desserts lately. So Bantam Cheesecake on Indian School. That place is incredible. All they do is make cheesecake, make it fresh every day. They've got a ton of different flavors, but I always just go back to the classic. Like when I went cheesecake, I went cheesecake, right? Um, Milkshakes at the stand. They have the dulce de leche
Oh,
shake.
yeah.
Their burgers are incredible. So I've been kind of on a dessert kick lately. So I'll probably,
A new
ease back
section
on
of a
that.
Taste That AZ, Taste of
Yeah,
AZ magazine, the dessert
yeah,
section.
for sure. Yeah. But also, like, I mean, for me, bigger picture wise, like what the path that I want to kind of go down is knowing how many people helped me along the way, really, with the mindset and with the habits and these things that, you know as an entrepreneur, you kind of feel like you're on this island sometimes, and you might talk to other people that are entrepreneurs as well, and you can pull different lessons from them.
Yeah.
So that's where I see kind of my path going in big picture, is just kind of helping empower people to take that step, to take that chance, to make that leap, to make that hard decision, right? There's so many resources out there, but it's like the Cheesecake Factory menu. There's so many that it's hard to sort through, uh, you know. So I'm hoping to try to simplify that, and I know you do a lot of that stuff too. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you and I can do. Um, but yeah, and one thing that I listen to this podcast called Founders. I love it. I love it. And what I learned from it though is, and the guy who hosts it, David Cerna, is very open about this. He's like, a lot of these founders were kind of dicks. They
Yeah.
found the success at the expense of their family, or at Frank Lloyd Wright was one. Like Frank Lloyd Wright, I never knew that, but dude, he had this thing where he said that he never felt, he didn't know what the feeling of like loving a child was. He had eight
Wow.
kids, until he saw one of his buildings. So he had that fatherly love for his buildings, but not his children. And then
Interesting.
he like bailed on his family. Like so that's one thing that, none of the, I wouldn't, I'm doing all of this for them, for my
Yeah.
kids and my wife, right? Like for us to do this together, that freedom to do what I want, that's for us to do what we want, right? So um so finding other people that really value that, and keeping those people in my world, and kind of not getting mixed up with the people that don't really align with me.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I was going with that, but you're one of those people, my friend. I appreciate
Thank you.
you. You energize me. I look forward to our conversations, our coffees, our meetings, our lunches, all that stuff, and I'm just very grateful for you.
Likewise, this is my man, Eric Walters, a co-founder at A Taste of AZ, which you can find at atasteofaz.com. You can get the magazine there. You can get a subscription to the magazine there. You can buy a ticket to the festival there. You can check out all the podcasts there. So if you got a favorite restaurant in town, chances are Eric's done a podcast with him. So please, please, please go check it out. Support my friend. And if you like food, he's your guy. If you like desserts, he's your guy. If you like good conversation, he's your guy. Eric, thank you so much. We'll do it again soon.
I appreciate you, buddy.
My name is Rob Hunter. That's Eric Walters. We'll be back with you real soon on Equal Matters. Cheers.